Okay, X. I've put some thought into this and I've decided to share my what the fuck nope / in a woods story with you. I wasn't going to, but after seeing a few other threads with people discussing weird stuff, I figured I might as well. And maybe I'll get a solution for my one and only unanswered question. What I'm about to tell you is 100% honest truth, and I'll try my best to be as detailed as possible. Firstly, some brief background on me, which I only offer you so that you might understand my behavior and mindset. I'm in my early 30s. I'm an active duty Marine who's been on the Corps for over 15 years. I'm a gunnery sergeant. I have quite a bit of training along with real world combat experience. I'm a rational, logical, and skeptical person who does not believe in the supernatural or the spiritual, and I'm a long-time lurker here on /K and 4chan in general. So this all took place in the Californian Mojave Desert, at a place called Joshua Tree National Park 3 weeks ago over the Thanksgiving holiday. I often go out there on sporting camping trips, and this time I was just out for one night of camping before the weather got too bad to tolerate it. This is a huge desert area with almost no vegetation other than scrub brush and cacti, large mountains and very flat valleys, and hardly any wildlife to be seen. I go there to do some hiking and to get away from the gadgets for a while and relax. The sunsets, sunrises, and starry nights are really amazing. When I go out alone, I leave my wife a map of where I'm going to my trip, identical to the one I carry along with myself, with a set timeline. I usually take a ruck and a Duraframe log, so I don't have to burn the already sparse vegetation. Basic survival gear with food and water, and I carry a Ruger 77/357. It's a bolt-action 357 rifle that uses a 5-round rotary magazine, of which I take 3 or more. I carry this because it's a national park and no one gives me a hard time about it. It's reliable, very accurate, light, cheap to shoot, and powerful enough to kill a coyote from 100 yards if I need to. The coyotes out here aren't deadly, but they are pretty damn fearless and are used to people, so it's a necessity. I almost always camp in the large rock outcroppings now, because one time I woke up and saw no less than 6 coyotes standing in the dark just outside my firelight watching me, pacing quietly. It was actually kind of neat to be so close to them, and we sat watching each other for a while, until one started edging too close and I had to shoo him away with a warning shot. Anyway, this particular night was uneventful aside from the coyotes making tons of obnoxious noise around 0400. It was pretty damn chilly, and since I was awake already, I started heading back down before the dawn even broke. I can make pretty good time and distance on foot, so my campsite was about 4 miles out. Farther than most people bother to venture, in fact. I've never run into anyone that far out now that I've come to think of it, even though it's not that far. So I'm heading back and I'm hiking back down a large hill that has boulders and crevices all along it. Nothing too crazy. Definitely not rock climbing or anything. I stay away from dangerous areas since I'm all alone. I get no further than 400 or 500 yards from my actual campsite, and there, lying on the ground in front of me, I see a blue and white knit beanie cap. The kind which has tassels on the sides. I stopped and started scanning the area, but I saw nothing out of the ordinary. I called out with a, "Hello?" and I got no reply. I walked over and reached down to pick it up, and as soon as I touched it, I heard a faint, "Hello?" off to my left. I stood up quickly, but I saw nothing. Walking further to my left, I saw a large crevice in the hill that went down about 30 or 40 feet and curved hard to the right among a very few large boulders. I couldn't really see anything down there because it was still too dark and the angle wasn't very good. But as soon as I had gotten a good look down into it, I heard a much louder, "Hello?" come up from below. My mind clicked into gear and I thought, shit, someone probably got lost down there and just spent a long cold night trapped in there. "Are you okay? Are you hurt? Do you need help?" I called down. The voice came back, "Please help me." I realized, holy shit, that's a child's voice, or it sounded like it. So I tossed my pack and rifle on the deck and started yanking out some 550 cord as I yelled down, "Don't worry, I'm gonna help you, stay calm." I tied a big loop off around the stone near me, and then wrapping it around my arm, I came quickly back to the edge. I started to lean forward to find the best way down when several things happened. I yelled down, "Stay calm," and then immediately I got a whiff of the most awful air I've ever smelt as I leaned over. Imagine what a long dead animal rotting in a mud puddle on a hot day would smell like. Just like that. In the gloom below, I saw a slight movement, just a shape, but far larger than any child could have ever been. And then I heard the child's voice. "Please come help me." I froze. That phrase had sounded exactly the same as before. And I mean, exactly. In tone, inflection, cadence, everything. It was so exact that it made me weirded out. A few seconds went by as I hesitated, then again from below, the exact same as before. "Please come help me." Now, I don't scare easily, but I was overcome by an unexplained fear. Not a fear I've ever felt before, like an adrenaline pumping kind you'd feel from a car accident or a firefight, but a gut-wrenching predator and I'm prey type of feeling that made me panic. I went into full flight or fight mode. I reeled back, scooting on my hands and feet and grabbed my rifle, panting. I remember thinking to myself, this isn't enough, I should have brought my M1A. And a second later I heard scraping and scrabbling sounds coming up from the crevice. I stood up and fucking ran, left all my gear behind, just the rifle in hand, ran down the hill. I heard panting, huffing coming from behind me, and then as loud as shit, "Please come help me." I was sprinting in the dawn, nearly hysterical with fear, and then I was back, through the park entrance and straight to the office when I started banging on the door. Hell, I was kicking it even, and yelling for help. A park ranger came from around the side of the building and told me to knock it the fuck off. Thinking about it now, I realized he had his hand on his pistol, and I very nearly got myself shot with all my bonkers behavior. Mind racing, I told him the only thing I could think that would make sense. I was coming back from my campsite and someone attacked me and chased me. He looks at me and says, "Who?" I tell him I have no idea and I never got a good look, and that I could take him to where it happened, where all my gear was. So after a brief chat with another ranger, this old fella and I got into his ATV and we head back up to the hill. We get up to the crevice in the rock, and sure as shit my gear is still there, and the cord is still wrapped around the stone like I left it, but no one else is there, and no blue and white beanie either. The ranger looks a little pissed and asks me if I had been drinking or doing drugs, and after returning to the office and taking my statement, he tells me, "Maybe next time you come out here you might want to leave the rifle at home, okay buddy?" So that's it. I headed home, took a shower, and tried to figure it out. I decided that either some seriously fucked up kids had just pranked the shit out of me, or that I had almost been robbed and killed by some tweakers in the desert in a hiking ambush. The only problem with these is that I can't figure out either one is true or not. Then, if one of them was, what was the awful smell all about? This is from Anon. Honestly, I don't know California legends all that well, but I'll be the first to say it. Skinwalker. Basically, comrade, you met something that eats people, and a skeptic who thinks you're about a 5150 case. This means never return to that area again. 1, because the ranger might try to get charges on you for some reason, and 2, because whatever that was might remember you and decide to deliberately hunt you. Back to the OP. I'm going to look into this, but it's really hard to believe, even after living through all of it. Also, my statement was actually filed with an actual report at the ranger's office, and it's on public record if anybody wants to verify that I'm telling the truth, although I may have left out some of the more interesting parts of the encounter in the report, for obvious reasons. Another anonymous poster says, 29 Palms, are you an instructor out there, Gunny? I miss bouldering out at Joshua Tree, and there was definitely some of the most beautiful night skies I'd ever seen. Kind of haunting to think that I was camping and drinking in Skinwalker territory. OP responds, yes, I'm an instructor with a year left out here at 29 Stumps, but I'd rather not get too detailed about it on here on my specifics on 4chan. Another anonymous poster says, okay now, to people who say nothing crazy happens out here in the desert or the park, you obviously aren't a local who's lived here their whole life. I've lived in the Yucca Valley my entire life, and I can tell you that these are super tiny towns, that there are several cases of people getting lost or going missing every year out here. You don't hear about it, usually the tourist types. It's not hard to keep it out of the news when your only real news outlet's a couple of town papers run by 4 or 5 people each. It would be really bad for tourism that we already have if word got out that people were going missing out here on the regular. What usually happens is that people misjudge distance in the desert, thinking that they're closer than they really are, and that the dryness dehydrates them so quickly. Here's something that happened to someone I personally knew about 4 years ago, in the same desert that the OP was in. A kid I went to high school with was apparently going through a rough time, and he decided to commit suicide. This guy drove out, parked his car, left a note in it, and headed out into the desert. A couple days later, they finally found some guy's clothes in a backpack with weed still in it, but they never found the guy. Now, if you weren't friends with the family or locals from here, you'd never know these details, but the news never said a peep about it. Not even a boy's missing spot. Now, this was intentional, but my point is the same. People get lost and go missing out here more often than you'd expect. OP responds, "Okay, I'm going to take some time to read up on the rest of this stuff. Right now, I think I need to take a break. Rethinking this about over and over again makes me a bit nauseous. I will say that there is some weird shit out here in the desert. Plenty of meth head tweakers, old abandoned mine shafts, and hell, they even permanently shut down part of our training area a few months ago because they found another Native American site full of artifacts during a live engagement.